Deputy Governor Reserve Bank of India. Shri Mohammed Mustafa, Chairman and Director SIDBI. Shri M.D. Nair, Chairman TransUnion CIBIL. And Shri Satish Pillai, Managing Director and CEO TransUnion CIBIL. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Shri Mohammed Mustafa, Chairman and Managing Director SIDBI, to address us on the conceptualization of MSME Pulse and usher in the beginning of today's ceremony.
Deputy Governor Sir Chairman and CEO SIDBI, banker firms, ladies and gentlemen. When I joined SIDBI, after that people started asking me, what does SIDBI do? And what has it done for MSMEs? It was a difficult question to answer. And we realized that while SIDBI started to do so many things, but most of them did not achieve the scale which could actually make a difference. That was the reason people were asking those kind of questions. We further realized that there are a whole lot of players. As far as financing is concerned, banks are there, NBFCs are there. So we realized that our scope and our role should lie in the field of data, regulatory intervention, so that we can speed up the process of decision making by bankers, by policymakers, and also to come out with some instruments which provide early signs to help take decisions by those who really matter. Data is the key to decision making, and it is available. If it is available at the right time, meaningful interventions can be made. To resolve this, first we started with what is known as CIBIL. It is basically MSME Sentiment Index, where the survey captures qualitative responses in respect to current and forthcoming quarters, which provide a broad direction of overall situation as to what is happening in respect of a specific sector and what is the state of employment, taxation, profits in MSME sector. So we have partnered with CIBIL for this. The first edition was launched on 3rd February, the Honorable Finance Minister. The next one will be available in April. It has already started gathering momentum in financial reporting and discussion, and I hope it will establish itself with subsequent editions and corroborations, and which will bring clarity. Now coming to MSME first, we further realized that structured data in respect of MSME is not available during the year. While there is some data in respect to SCB, there is no data related to NBFCs. While they are a very, very important part as far as MSME financing is concerned. Further, the data which is available, it only gives an overall data and does not give us segmental analysis as to what is happening in a specific sector, in particular size of loans. So that is why we decided to focus that we should come out, we should make effort to bring out such reports, for which we partnered with CIBIL, and look at how important it is. If I just try and give you some hints as to what is going to coming out of the report that we are releasing today. You might be knowing some of these, but there are some very, very important lessons. One is like within overall commercial credit, actually what is keeping the momentum for the last 3 years? It is not large trading, unlike what it believed. Actually, the growth has actually taken place in MSME. Second, within the MSME specificity, what is growing it fastest is more than 30% is micro. And the fewer NPA. So these are the normal things. Now coming to, there is no data available anywhere which can tell us as to how many new entrepreneurs in the MSME space have access to formal credit. There is no data available. Now, we have a section in this report on that. And what I did say is this very, very important finding. It says that majority of such people, if the loan size is less than 10 lakh, are actually financed by public sector, 75%. But now see what happens. If the amount goes beyond 10 lakh and goes up to 10 crore, the situation changes. Actually now, public sector amount falls below 50%. Actually now here the private sector steps in. So it shows that public sector might be having what we know as targeted approach. Now, Pulse will also is supposed to carry contextual analysis, like in respect of current situation as we are doing. In this edition, we are doing it with respect to demonetization, with respect to GST, and with also to recent RBI concession in respect of NPAs related to GST filing. We also propose to carry a specific section on policy pointer, which if attended can make a lot of difference. So we are actually we are trying to fill a critical gap which exists to facilitate decision making. On the one side, we attempted through what is known as courtesy tax, which is actually giving overall view what has happened in the past, the last quarter and the next quarter. And this will give you exactly what happened, because that is the qualitative index, and this is a real data pointer which will give you. Now what happens if I see what was predicted in President and what is coming out of MSME Pulse, so very interesting. Actually MSME Pulse corroborates what President predicted. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri Mustafa. Availability of credit information is enabling far-reaching changes in the broader credit infrastructure in India and is supporting the evolution of credit risk management across commercial and retail lending. I would now request
Thank you very much, Ashla. Mr. N.S. Vishwanathan, Deputy Governor, Mr. Mustafa, CMD, SIDBI, Mr. Satish Pillai. Ladies and gentlemen, let me extend a warm welcome to you for this very unique initiative that jointly TransUnion and SIDBI is here to sort of present launching of MSME report. So, first of all, let me thank Mr. Mustafa for making this possible. I think there's a lot of activity happening in SIDBI, and they are the real people who should actually drive, and for giving us an opportunity to work with SIDBI in this whole initiative. I think I'll make a few points. The first point, whether MSME is the new retail. That's the question I want to ask. For me, it appears MSME is the new retail. Why? Because one, it has a potential for high growth. Number two, the data indicates the delinquency is lower. Number three, MSME could be a very long-term play. Next 10 years, it appears we have a clear, all bankers, all lenders have clear play. What does it benefit? All of us know it's much debated. MSME's contribution to the economy is far higher. Any sector for that matter, if you look at it. And as we increase our lending to MSME sector, the GDP itself can expand, the employment generation can substantially expand. What is there for lenders? My reading is next 10 years, as we engage with MSME for larger lending, the quality of balance sheet of lenders itself may undergo that positive change. That is where the MSME Pulse report gives a lot of insight. I would request you to actually spend some time to go through this report. It gives insight into what is happening. We also make few recommendations to the policymakers and the regulators to enable good decision making by the lenders. Let me slightly bit of dwell on MSME is the new retail. Then look back in the last 10 years, 2008 to 2018. 2018 for retail borrowers, the consumer experience today is much different than what it was in 2008. It must have been driven by multiple things, but I should give full credit to the lenders. The innovative approach you adopted because you had a lot of data. And we also take full credit for supporting with the lenders to give insight into the retail credit. Today, if someone walks into a dealer's shop and buys a car and moves out in 10 minutes, it was not possible in 2008. A pre-approved credit is not possible in 2008. The experience has been far different than what was in 2008 to 2018. I had a very pleasant experience last month when I was in San Francisco. I was invited to be on a panel. The audience were large fund houses, large insurance companies, and Dr. Raghuram Rajan was giving the keynote address, primarily showcasing India as a better destination he shared one experience. He said in the World Economic Conference, he was having a discussion with Mr. Sanjeev Bajaj, who said, I have built 1 lakh crore company based on the data, analytics, and support of CIBIL. It was just, I mean, for me, sitting there was a great, pleasant experience. Having said that, 2-3 years back, one of the chairman of a private sector bank did mention there's not only that the retail side, the delinquency has substantially come down because of the data, but also we started getting those customers who come back and will pay to us, which we had written off. I think most of your experience that is. So today when you look back, those who focus on retail lending, market has rewarded them. The companies' large valuations is primarily retail companies. So now let us look at how MSME can replicate the similar experience for the lenders. And all of us know MSME is the lifeblood of the economy. And when we look at the numbers, there are 50 million MSME in the country. 5 million are finance. That's what the data we have. 5 million. That means only 10% of finance. 90% of white space where we can now actually pay. The total credit is 11.7 lakh crore to this sector. And micro, as Mr. Mustafa rightly mentioned, is growing over 20%. It's almost 30% on less than 10 lakhs. Even if you take just 20% growth, which is possible, distinctly possible, next 10 years, the loan book size should be somewhere around 60 to 70 lakh crore. That is the size of an opportunity that is available for us in next 10 years. So, next point that I want to make is the under-penetration in SME credit could be two ways. One is there's a demand side, one is supply side. On the demand side, in the past, they were primarily not getting in the formal financing. We all know they were more in the informal side. They were not preparing the books. They were very scared of, whatever reason it is. But last few years, things have substantially changed. The digital footprint is available, the tax footprint or the merchant acquisition side, the footprint. Post GST, clearly there are footprints available about most of the MSMEs. So that will facilitate proper decision making by the lenders. So we have the numbers, Mr. Mustafa rightly mentioned. How many of them are the new to credit customers? In the second quarter of 2017, second half year, that's the half year of 2017, 4 lakh new customers have been added. Whereas first quarter of 2016, it was 2.7 lakhs. That means the very movement, because of the data, because of the risk, the perception risk coming down, there is a tendency to finance to the new to credit customers. On the supply side, for the bankers, primarily our entire book was either retail or the large corporates. In the large corporate side, all of us know there won't be much of a play for us for quite some time to come for two reasons. One is better of the rated companies will go to bond market. The other companies, we don't know the lend. The working capital may be the primary opportunity. Retail will continue to grow. That's what the buyback report indicates. Whereas SME could be a big opportunity from the demand side also to grow. So, when we look at the NPA side itself, 10 lakh to 5 crores under the commercial lending side has the lowest NPA. So, it's a profitable business for the bankers to do so. Supply. Now, one other point I want to make is, from this study, from this report, we are making 4 recommendations to the policymakers and to the regulator. The first, this study highlights the significant scope that exists to increase access to credit for MSMEs while reducing the cost of credit to the borrower and increasing the profitability for the lenders. This is possible through astute and extensive usage of data analytics, not just for underwriting, but also for formulating policy actions. It builds the case for lenders and credit bureaus to be provided access to alternate data such as GST, EPFO, and utility bill payment information, as this will provide critical risk assessment inputs for the new to credit MSME customers and enhance the overall risk assessment quality of the MSMEs. The first recommendation this report makes. Second, MSME Plus indicates that MSMEs can improve access to finance in the form of credit opportunities by leveraging trade receivables electronic discounting system. To enable this, regulatory approval is required for TRADS to access credit bureau data and submission of trade finance data for underwriting purposes. Third, yet another crucial recommendation of this report is for regulators to form enabling policies for securitization of MSME exposures with real-time risk assessment facilitated by credit bureau. MSME with a live credit exposure are in excess of 5 million, with majority of them having exposures below 5 crore and are usually not rated by credit rating agencies. Utilizing bureau data to assess the risk of MSME portfolio for securitization will improve the objectivity and transparency of the risk assessment process. And the fourth and the final recommendation we make is, most importantly, the report advocates strong policy incentives for geographical credit expansion and inclusion. Few states like UP, Bihar, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh have a substantial base of MSME entities, but have significantly lagged behind in terms of credit growth and penetration. Special focus credit clusters need to be created to improve credit flow in these states, along with strong policy incentives. This will increase MSME lending penetration in these states and provide a significant push to the economic output and employment opportunities. With this, let me once again make a mention, next 10 years, I am sure, and let us all work together to make MSME as a new retail. All the best. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mustafa and Mr. Nair have set the stage for the most awaited event of the day, the launch of MSME Pulse, a joint initiative by SIDBI and TransUnion CIBIL. May I request Sri Vishwanathan to unveil the report and present it to us and the industry. Request if all the dignitaries could stand up for a photo opportunity. We take a picture. I would now request Mr. Deep Mukherjee, Chief Product Officer, TransUnion CIBIL, to take us through the key findings of MSME Pulse.
Thank you, Varshala. Respected dignitaries, industry friends and colleagues, I'll take this opportunity for the next 10 minutes to take you out to the key findings of the MSME Pulse report. So certain things that Mr. Nair has mentioned, and before that Mr. Mustafa. When we look at the overall credit growth, I think there has been a lot of news that the overall credit growth has been somewhat lukewarm in the last 12 to 18 months. But when you sort of deep dive into the data, you would see that companies with aggregated credit exposure below 1 crore, which we term as the micro segment. For the last 2 years, they have been growing at the credit growth in that segment has been 20%. No one was expecting a 20% growth in any segment. And the overall number was a lukewarm 3.2%. But there is a segment which has grown at 20%. SME, which we club as a segment with aggregated credit exposure of 1 crore to 25 crore, has grown at 9%. You see as we move up the exposure side, you see that the credit growth has been very, very muted to the extent the large segment, which is companies with aggregated exposure of 100 crore and above, has grown at only 0.5%. Obviously, it's not difficult to understand the reason for that. For large corporates, it's stuck with issues of NPA recovery, low capex, not to mention possible bouts of risk aversion from the bankers. On the contrary, a lot of the small companies which are associated to the core Indian consumption story, which supplies day-to-day needs, they have been thriving quite well despite the overall sentiment not being so great. And we see that very, very clearly in the data. This is the NPA rates. We would see that as the ticket size reduces or the aggregated exposure size reduces, the delinquency rates are also lower. You would see that this is the large corporates with aggregated exposure of over 100 crores. We find that in December 2015 it was 7.9% NPA. And coincidentally with the launch of AQR, it has kept on rising and currently it is at 16.9% NPA level. Mid, which is a segment with aggregate exposure between 25 crore and 100 crore. These mid companies tend to be tier 1, tier 2 suppliers of large corporates. They do get affected by the payment cycles. Some of them have extended receivable days associated with large corporates and their cash flows are under stress. We see that is getting also reflected in their NPA rates, and they have shot up from, again, around 7.98% to 15.9%. That's where the beauty of the MSME segment comes to, which is a consumption-driven play more often than not. Even during the lowest portion of the cycle, we see that the credit has not per se deteriorated significantly. It has moved from 7.9 to 8.8% for the micro segment. For SME segment, it has moved from 9.8 to 11.2. We do not see a structural deterioration of credit. Moving more into greater details into the segment of our interest, which is below 10 crore exposure, which is also the segment which SIDBI focuses on. We find the same story. The smallest companies, which we call as very small, whose aggregated exposure is below 10 lakh, extreme left-hand side, they have grown at 31.9%. That's a growth rate which is higher than also retail. If you look at micro, which is 10 lakh to micro 1, which is we have split the micro into 10 lakh to 50 lakh bucket and 50 lakh to 1 crore, and we see that they have shown growth rates of 17%, 15.6%. So clearly showing that there is a very significant demand at the bottom of the corporate pyramid. If we go upwards, we see that the growth rates are sort of tapering off. Again, the smaller the company, the less dependent it is on large companies, or for that matter, heavy-duty projects, more dependent on day-to-day consumption. The larger the company, more closer it is integrated to the overall big ticket projects, etc. And you see that not only their credit growth has tapered off, but also their NPA rates are higher. This is also something that Mr. Nair has pointed out. NTC, new to credit additions. New to credit additions, at some time back, it used to be below 5% of the new accounts opened used to be new to credit in MSME. In 2015, it was 7.2%. Now it is 9.7, close to 10%. 1 in 10 credit that is underwritten is new to credit in commercial. So there is a huge amount of activity which, when you look at the overall GDP number, it flows below the radar. But once you take a deep dive into the data, you clearly see that where the action is. This is, I think there has been a lot of ongoing debate on GST, demonetization, has it recovered, has it not recovered? I think quite a long time back someone said every person is welcome to his or her opinion, but without data you are just another person with an opinion. The data suggests that, so this is the chart is to be read as this. The credit exposure at December 2015, we have benchmarked it or indexed it as 1. And the below 10 crore segment, we have split it between 10 lakh to 50 lakh, 50 lakh to 1 crore, 1 crore to 5 crore, and 5 crore to 10 crore. This is the credit growth. We find that during implementation of demonetization, there was significant reduction of credit exposure. This is not difficult to understand because the overwhelming number of credit facility that is given in this segment happens to be working capital lines closely associated with their stocks inventory. If there is lesser number of business, etc., you expect a lower drawdown and credit to fall. We find there was again a hiccup around the time of GST launch. Now we see post-September, and if you look at December 31st data, we find that in the 5 to 10 crore and the 1 to 5 crore, they have recovered significantly from the level it was pre-demonetization period. And the weakest or the smallest segment, which is the 10 lakh to 50 lakh segment, they have taken a longer time to recover, but they were back to at the pre-demonetization level. So one can say that the credit activity in MSME is safely back and has gone beyond whatever the impact was of demonetization and GST. We focus on the smaller segment below 10 lakh, below 10 crore, and see how the delinquencies move. Again, below 10 lakh, we see that the delinquency rates continue to be high among the higher basket, though it's much lower than MSME, etc. But if you look at the 10 lakh to 50 lakh basket, 50 lakh to 1 crore, you see that the delinquency rates are held steady. It hovers between 7.5–8% during a period of time which has seen 2 economic shocks and a gradual recovery in economy in certain sectors as well. Which are the sectors that are doing very well? We see construction. So construction, we often think of the large companies, a lot of them under NPA, but you would appreciate there are thousands of small construction companies which supplies goods, provide services to local municipalities and the like. They have not seen an incremental spike in delinquency. So we see construction, small construction companies with aggregate exposure below 5 crore, auto components, machinery equipment, leather, rubber, plastic. They have been holding steady with reasonably low or below average NPA rate. These are the segments one should possibly target. Segments which one should continue to remain cautious of steel and metal. So steel and metal would typically be a stack processor or someone who would just make cast iron or some element of KMT bars. Their net margin here, we haven't seen any improvement. Gems and jewelry, mining, risky segments continue to have delinquencies even as of December 31st, 2017 of 14–17%. So the stress remains in those segments. So this is the past. Up till 31st December, which are the segments, what are the delinquency rates? How do we know? Can we tell what is the pipeline of NPA going forward in next 12 months? The bureau data allows you to take a view on the pipeline of NPAs. 77,000 crore is the quantum of NPA which is recognized in, but definitely not definitely standard. So that's 8,000 crore. It is possible that going forward, they may in the consistently have overdues because the bureau is able to capture 1 rupee 1 day overdue, as well as SMA 0, SMA 1, SMA 2 flags. So your next set of NPAs is likely to come from the 26,000 crore. Never to say that all 26,000 crore would become NPA, but a substantial portion may become NPA. Even if you take the whole stock and see what the NPA would look like, it doesn't look like there will be a significant proliferation on the overall NPA basket, particularly in the segment that we are discussing, which is below 10 crore. Needless to say that the sector is very, very attractive, and it has attracted private banks as well as NBFCs, and whereas public sector banks used to be 61.5% of the market share, whereas private banks used to be 25.4. We see the private banks have grown in market share at 28.5. So I appreciate this is the market share growth in a growing market. NBFCs again from 7.9% market share to 10.4, which means that each of them have shown very significant growth on their balance sheet. Needless to say that when we see some private banks or NBFCs growing their balance sheet, a lot of it is contributed to this. NPA rates, obviously, despite the growth, the private sector banks' NPA rates has been restricted to 3.5% to 5% level. So there is a lot of due diligence underwriting and good quality risk management, which is to say that it is possible to grow in this sector, keeping NPAs in check. Last but not the least, we have recently seen an RBI circular which says that if you are not an NPA in August 2017, but because of the events like GST, etc., you have slipped into the NPA basket in January, there will be a regulatory forbearance. A bureau gives you deep dive into any type of issue. It helps you do event-related correlation studies, and here we find that 1.4 lakh borrowers are those who have no NPA in August 2017. In January, they have become NPA. These are most likely the set of MSMEs who would benefit, whose banks would benefit from the regulatory forbearance. This would be around 12,000 crores of exposure. But when you look at structural risk, when I do the CIBIL MSME rank which was launched last year, if I run it on the MSME portfolio as of 31st December, I find that 12,000 crore is good, but the CIBIL MSME rank suggests that in 8, 9, 7 to 10, we have 82,000 crore of exposure, which is high risk, which needs to be worried about, which need not be within the RBI dispensation. With that, I'll hand over to Rachel.
Thank you, Deep. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor now to invite Honorable Shri N.S. Vishwanathan, Deputy Governor, Reserve Bank of India, to deliver the keynote address and present his thoughts on MSME Pulse. A warm round of applause for Mr. Vishwanathan.
CMD SIDBI, Mr. Nair, Chairman, TransUnion, Mr. Pillai, CEO of TransUnion, bankers, and other distinguished guests. We live in what we call as the information age. It's been described as the modern age, regarded as a time in which information has become a commodity that is quickly and widely disseminated and easily available, especially through the use of computer technology. We are living in that age. So availability of information is signed for now for non-evidence-based decision making. For evidence-based decision making, it's contrary to the non-evidence-based decision making. While every public institution works towards what is called as the public interest or public good, many a times there is disagreement as to what is public good itself. And there, I think the evaluation of results based on data, based on information, would give us an adequate explanation whether public good has been served or not served. In such a situation, availability of appropriate quantitative and qualitative information will help in convincing the skeptics about the path and destination chosen by the public heart. In the last couple of years, Reserve Bank has invested significant amount of energy in the information management architecture that we have today. Today, data and analysis play a much larger role in decision making at the Reserve Bank of India than it used to be say, educated. On the credit information front, we have made considerable progress in the quantity, in the quality, and availability of information to various users of this data. I'm not tired of mentioning this again and again, because I think in some part of what we've done, we're kind of even better than the rest of the world. I thought we must mention this. The three major things that we've done in this direction are expanding the database of credit information companies to include SIDBI borrowers, requiring 360-degree credit report rather than a modular one, which we did recently, and then of course the mandatory access to one credit report to each borrower. RBI of course has created a credit database. Credit of course stands for Central Repository of Information on Lost Credits, which helps banks and RBI get a holistic view of the banking system's exposure to a borrower, which is useful to banks in their credit decisions and RBI for policy making. Work being done on the public credit registry would help us improve the understanding of performance of credit exposures of lenders going forward like that. The need for technology accessible credit data has grown leaps and bounds in the wake of use of fintech in financial services. For instance, the guidelines we have issued on P2P lending platforms is an enabler for lending by public without the traditional intermediators like the banks. But and most likely the MSME borrowers are the likely users of the P2P platform to raise funds. The P2P platforms will need to give a realistic assessment of the creditworthiness of a potential borrower, and the lending public may also need to take discerning decisions whether or not to participate in a borrowing program launched on a P2P platform. All this needs intelligible information. The word intelligible is important, which in turn requires data. But ultimately, how the available data is analyzed and put out as a useful and usable information becomes critical. I knew that a lot of data on credit to the MSME sector would be out. I didn't want to repeat them. But I thought the MSME sector plays a critical role in the economy anywhere, and India is no exception. In India, the MSME sector accounts for 31% of the GDP, both the manufacturing and the services sector put together, provides employment to 111.2 million people. And that's just next to agriculture, and contributes 45% to exports. The contribution of MSME to the manufacturing sector, I said it's both MSME, both in manufacturing service, is 33% of what the manufacturing contributes. So bringing every element of this sector to the formal fold is very important, both for the sector as also the institutional lenders. Mr. Nayak talked about the potential to grow the credit book even at the current rate of 20% growth, even with just a micro segment. The circular we issued recently to help facilitate the units in the sector to transit to the formal segment of the economy is a case in point. Similarly, we are announcing the new resolution framework recently. We have excluded the entities with exposure less than 250 million from its purview because we understand that this sector needs to be supported. Therefore, apart from the various other efforts, availability of well-analyzed data on the sector will be an important part of this formalization. I believe MSME Pulse would, to a large extent, bridge the gap arising from the lack of information on the performance of the sector. It is important that CICs do not confine themselves to collecting and disseminating basic information alone. I think that's what distinguishes as good CICs from good. The use of microdata to develop useful information is an important value addition function of this process. I'm happy to know that SIDBI and CIBIL have joined hands to put out this MSME pulse, and I hope it will help them. I'm sure it will keep on improving and expanding both the coverage and content in days to come, and will become an important benchmark of the field. I'm also sure that with the use of this data, penetration of the formal sector to serve the financial needs of the MSME sector will also increase in a large way. And I think altogether it's a great effort in economy building and nation. I wish the CIBIL and SIDBI all the very best in this effort. I'm sure that in days to come we will have a much more vibrant MSME sector, and we might be able to allude to MSME pulse as one of those that has contributed.
Thank you very much, sir, for enlightening us with your thoughts and insights. As we near the end of today's ceremony, I will now request Mr. Satish Pillai, Managing Director and CEO of TransUnion CIBIL, to sum up the key takeaways for the day.
Good afternoon all. Mr. Vishwanathan, Mr. Mustafa, Mr. Nair, and fellow partners in this transforming lending infrastructure space. And I call all of you partners, not just bankers, but as consumers, as people working as individuals in companies or business owners. We're all part of this ever-evolving space. As we kind of talk about MSME policy, what this means, I want to kind of take a first step back and saying, so Vishwanath spoke about this as well, in terms of creation of CICs, and we look at the India market being very unique in some ways, but also helps simplify the purpose of why we were created. To put it very simply, we were created to help reduce the information asymmetry that exists today in the lending infrastructure, and that asymmetry exists between a prospective borrower and a lender. Can exist in many different levels across regulators, industry bodies, as well as lenders. And our job is to enable, create solutions that give insights at a very primary level to tell stories about how we can reduce that information asymmetry. And the reason we do it, it will allow then faster and cheaper access to credit, whether that's for consumer entities, that's for GLGs, a group of self-employed women, self-help groups. And we continue to do that, and that's, we believe, our responsibility to ensure literacy exists, because as much as we can educate each other, it's important to have a empowered, educated owner of a small business to ensure that he or she understands what he should or he should be doing to ensure that they have access to capital to enable growth. If you're looking at MSMEs as the engine of growth, and India is a land of steel, so there is definitely, you see us growing in our long term. Very critical to have a vibrant MSME sector across different types of cluster, but it's important that they are educated, and it's our job to enable that education as well. And if you look at this, the MSME initiative, we look at the pulse as well as a beginning of the conversation. It looks to start the unraveling process of what exactly exists from the NPLA. We spoke about all the numbers, and they're in the reports that are in your hands right now. And you start seeing us breaking things down at a segment or a sub-segment level. And the call to action to all of us, I think, is important as well. So this insights lead to ideas or solutions to problems that we are then called and tasked, and as bankers and lenders are tasked to create, to help solve for those problems that exist. As policymakers, as regulators, as government bodies, are tasked to understand how you look at possible provisioning or possible losses maybe a year, 2 years down the road. And these call to actions are critical. And as you know, Deep spoke about, many of those sectors that exist in MSME as a broad segment, it's probably too broad of a brush to be able to come up with stories, and you understand the smaller ticket sizes growing at a more material way. You also see great nuances in terms of share shift, and it's very easy to kind of assume if the shift away from public sector to private sector banks, why it's happening. And I think The reverse is also true. It's important to understand why is it the consumer demand is differentiated across these segments. And also, the calls to action. The understanding that on the micro and the small business side, at least on the smaller exposure side, there is an importance to start looking at the number of customers rather than the amount itself. The change in methodology from lending, I think, will be a powerful enabler to allow us to grow from 5 million commercial entities or small entities who got finance to a potential of 50 that exist today. And then we add the self-help groups or even the JLG in the MFI sector where our self-employed will in there, potential small business owners. There's a huge capacity for us to start looking at this space and saying, what do we need to do to enable transformation? So this, I believe, is a beginning. It's a beginning of a conversation. It's a beginning of the getting to one level below the layer of a gross NPA and start seeing where the trends exist. It's a beginning of an opportunity to find areas where we can grow in MSME. So look at the silver lining around the cloud and try and figure out how we can grow. And I think it is a very important call to action to continue and accelerate the transformation. To accelerate the transformation of reducing the asymmetry even further, so that the access to credit is faster for micro and small businesses, to allow them to engineer the growth that this country deserves. So thank you again for coming. Look forward to your feedback around the pulse. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all for being part of this launch of MSME Pulse. And I now request everyone to join us for lunch at the pre-function area. Thank you very much to the dignitaries on the stage as well.